All right, well, good afternoon. Thanks everybody for joining with us today. I'm John Selleck with Harbor Strategic, and I'm here representing two of the parents and leaders, the moms of the group Change4Oxford. And you may remember back to about a year ago, April 2022, Andrea Jones and Lori Bourgeau with us today, along with 17 other students and parents, filed suit against the Oxford Public Schools, not for money, but instead for injunctive relief. And that's a fancy way of saying they're seeking transparency into what the actual safety procedures were and how they were conducted at the time of the tragedy over a year ago now. And obviously then what they've done since. Have they adjusted their safety procedures? Have they improved their safety procedures? Are they up to snuff? So we wanted to take this time to have Lori and Andrea talk, considering that the first part of the guide post report, supposedly on current safety issues, was released sometime after hours just a few days ago. And then today, the first of 3 meetings took place this morning with the district and the folks who did the investigation of current safety procedures. And we wanted to be able to talk fresh out of that meeting. Andrea Jones, who I'll introduce next and will be up first, just came from that meeting in Oxford, and she's going to talk through her opinions and feelings on that report and what it's doing or not doing to satisfy the needs of the group Change4Oxford and her family. So with that, Andrea Jones, please go ahead.
Thank you, John. So with the release of the report, it was a lot to digest. It was a lot of information. Overall, I have a lot of more questions than we do answers. So this report for me did not do anything to restore trust in the district. It did cover a lot of the physical implementations for security that we've added, and those are great additions. However, it does seem as though we are still lacking in the major areas, which include threat assessment and suicide assessment. To read that we only had 2 out of 44 suicidal assessments in which the district asked if they had access to weapons was very discouraging, especially being as that was such a hot button topic surrounding what happened with our tragedy. So I still have a lot of questions as to what improvements we've done as far as how these assessments are being done, and also communication throughout the district when we have threats. So it did come out in the meeting that the high school has its own separate threat assessment team from the middle school, and that those two teams do not communicate with each other, which would be an area that I would definitely want to see improvement on. And also the communication between the teachers and the administration. When they have a behavioral issue with a student, how are they communicating that to the counselors? Is it the same person responding? How have we narrowed down how quickly and the method that they're to use in a situation like that? So those are questions that I'm left with.
Okay, with that, I would like to introduce Lori Bourgeau. Lori, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for everyone for coming tonight. When I read through the review or the report, the same words came to mind that came to me immediately after the shooting. We're still left hoping for some accountability, some lack of trust, transparency, the need for oversight, consistency. We need some responsible hiring. We need to bring in people into the district that have the experience to make empowered choices that are best for our students. Clearly, we need some more training, not just training a couple of people in the administration, a couple of counselors. The entire staff needs to be trained. Everybody in every one of these buildings should be a person that our children can count on, somebody who knows how to identify signs in our students that they need help. Additionally, collaboration and communication. These are all things that we're just hoping the school district will one day get together. For example, one of the suggestions in the report was that the district is doing a large amount of threat assessments at this point. And while that sounds great, the thing about threat assessment is it should be a proactive and not just a reactive thing. They should be identifying students who need help before they make an actual threat. So the recommendation was to bring on 1 or 2 people that would go through and filter those concerning reports and escalate the reports that need the entire threat assessment board to take a look at them. But we're left wondering, who are you going to hire to do that? Who are you going to put in control of that? Wasn't that Hopkins' job in the past? And he failed terribly at it. How do we know that the person doing it now isn't going to do the same? We need a trust to be regained between the school board and the community. And at this point in time, I'm just not sure how we get there, because there's been so many opportunities to slowly rebuild that trust. And it's clearly lacking. The report pointed out there are a lot of good things going on. There's a lot of good changes. There's a lot of great policies being put in place. But the school district already had a lot of great policies. They just aren't doing them. They aren't following those policies they put in place. And that is still a problem today. And it's clear because Guidepost, the company that the school district paid to do the report, told us that. For example, the 8400 forms, the district's never filled out one. They're talking about how the district needs to update the handbook so it doesn't show those anymore, replacing it with new policies. But until these policies are actually being followed through, it doesn't matter how many you put in place. There's still changes that need to be made to building security. And while there's been a lot of great changes, the fact that there's still some real basic ones like window coverings, locking doors up properly, that the staff needs to show their badges. These are things that shouldn't be in this report today saying it's still a problem. That should have been cleared up the day the school reopened its doors to students. And additionally, communication and collaboration. We see that the report is all about the high school. Yet in the news, we keep hearing about elementary students, even in Michigan, coming to school with loaded guns, shooting teachers. There's concerns in every one of our buildings. And a report that is based on the high school and the high school alone is concerning. I'm not sure. I'd like to know why it only has the high school. Whose idea was that? But that's some serious problems. They need to collaborate. We need to collaborate within our threat assessment team. We need to collaborate between buildings. We need to collaborate between the community, the parents, the students. Our students, they don't ask for much, but when they do ask for something, they should be heard. You shouldn't have to come up with some other decision on how you can kind of give them what they're asking for without actually giving them exactly what they're asking for. Some simple things that these kids ask for, and they're the ones who need to be safe. They're the ones whose trust was broken. They're the ones who were hurt on November 30th. And those are the ones that should be leading the way. And this administration and district should be doing everything it can to answer to them and make them feel safe, heard, and give them the chance to start learning again. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for coming. And that's what I have, John.
Thank you so much, Lori. With that, we're able to take questions from credentialed media online. So if you'd like to ask a question from Andrea or Lori, just raise your hand there at the bottom of the screen and we'll put you on. We're going to start with Courtney Bennett. Courtney, please go ahead.
Hi, Lori and Andrea. Thank you so much for doing this. Something to note in the guidepost in their report that they released was that in the spring of 2022, they surveyed students and Oxford families, and the survey showed that nearly 3 in 10 students felt unsafe at Oxford High School, and 1 in 5 parents or guardians believe their children were unsafe there. A year later, you guys still feel the same? Do you feel that sense in the community that there's still that unsafe feeling?
I would say yes, because we're not always communicated to about what the threats are. So the communications have been very vague, which again leaves more questions than answers. And so, I mean, I know that they can't tell us everything for security reasons, but the emails and the communications are still very vague in content. So that leaves a lot of questions. We also, you know, since our tragedy, have had an increase in threats prior to what we had prior. And, you know, especially around the anniversary, other things that happened. And then we also had MSU, which, you know, really brought back everybody to day one in our community, reliving that again. And so the threshold of fear and of, you know, worry about having our kids not just in a public school, but in a school that's already had failures that led to something like this, it can be overwhelming at times.
And I would just add that feeling safe and being safe are 2 different things. And I don't know that my son will ever feel safe again. And I don't know if any of us parents will ever truly believe they're safe again. But overall, the trust is broken. And so feeling safe with our children in this school, I don't know how we could ever get there. Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer, simply because you're always hoping that I'm always hoping that it's just me. It's just my feelings on these things because of what happened, that it's difficult. But the school isn't communicating with us in a way that we truly know our children are safe. We get these very, very basic emails that come out when there is a serious threat. And it just says, we can't tell you anything about it. Yeah, we had police here today. Everything's fine, but we're not going to tell you anymore. We read emails in other school districts and they give so much detail. And you read those and I'm jealous, not because they have a problem, but I'm jealous because their school is sharing with them enough details to where they can make that decision on whether they send their kid to school the next day or not. And here we're just left wondering if we send our kid to school next year, let alone tomorrow. So there's real simple things that could help us start rebuilding that trust and feeling a little safer, but just those very basic things such as communication make that answer be no.
Okay, next up, we're going to hear from Gus Burns from MLive. Gus, please go ahead.
Hello, nice to talk to you. I'm curious, I mean, obviously this report is important to know that they made changes and that they're working on safety. But one thing a lot of people are interested in is what was the status back when this shooting occurred, and some of the lessons that can be learned from that, but it's difficult to learn those lessons when there hasn't yet been a report on everything that happened. I guess I'm wondering what your reaction is to that. A year later, still nothing coming out about the shooting investigation from the school district. And I guess what your faith is and what your expectations are as to when that may come out and what we'll find out about that.
Yeah, I mean, Andrea and I have been screaming it from the beginning, which is, how can you know what to fix if you don't know what's broken? And all we're left with is feeling like it's all broken. Knowing that there are some changes it's great, but are the right ones in place yet? So yeah, until we get to that point of finding it out, and I worry we'll never really find it out. Things are, the second report seems to keep getting delayed. We've heard from the school multiple times saying we're only going to find things out through lawsuits, and yet, lawsuits are getting dropped, or we had our shooter, when he pled, it was a real mixed feeling, because while overall it takes away the pain of going through it all and wondering, it still left us saying, are we really going to find out the truth if that doesn't go and we don't see our day in court with that? So it is definitely a big concern. I'm not sure we'll ever get to the bottom.
I can echo Lori's thoughts on that. It's incredibly frustrating. We're 500 and something days in now, and every time that we hear we're going to get an update or a date coming, it gets pushed back for one reason or another. And we've been told all along that there are members of the school district that are not complying with the investigation, and that's incredibly frustrating. If there was nothing done wrong, then I don't understand the need to not comply. If that's their argument, we did everything right, then just tell us what you did, and then we can go from there. So that's a hard pill to swallow as a parent every time we hear that. And I do feel that Guidepost has a responsibility to tell us who is not complying with this investigation in the spirit of transparency, which is what this is all about. This is all about accountability and transparency. So, let's be accountable and comply. Let's be transparent and say who is and who isn't. So that's a big source of frustration for a lot of people in the community, I think, and especially myself. Yeah, and right now they're saying it'll be June. Well, when this report came out, we had told it would be 2 to 3 weeks, and it was 4. So every time it's extended a little bit further and a little bit further. And now they're saying that the holdup with the next section is because of the prosecutor. So, as parents, it's really frustrating because we don't even really know what's going on because we're not privy to that information. And it feels like, this is supposed to be unbiased, but it feels like the school has a lot more information than we as parents do. So that doesn't make it feel unbiased, which gives us a lot of trust issues with Guidepost based on that.
Thank you, Andrea. Next, we have a question in the Q&A from Matthew Farr at the Oakland Press. Do you think that Honor Community Health withdrawing their offer from the district and the mental health staff and the referrals that would have come from having them come into the district is detrimental in the long run for Oxford?
No, I don't. We definitely need more mental health supports for our students. Now, if it would have came in the form of Honor Clinic, I don't know if that would have been the right choice. There was certainly a lot of questions surrounding the security of having that in the building because there was no guarantee that it wouldn't be open to the public. It was also incredibly close to the hallway where this tragedy occurred, which made a lot of us uncomfortable. There were also some questions regarding HIPAA and FERPA, where if a student did go to the clinic and was having issues, would they be reporting that to the district? And the answer was no. So that was a huge concern for many. So I do think we definitely need more mental health, but I don't know if the clinic would have been the right opportunity for that. So I think we need to be looking at other avenues for that. And I think the district needs to be proactive on that.
I agree with Andrea. I'm not entirely sure that the clinic was the right answer. My concern was always letting the public into the school building while the kids are in school. You know, I just pictured my son looking out his window and seeing somebody who didn't belong there that day walking into the building, and the fear that that would create for him. And speaking with him, I know that that was his concern as well, not just me. So that was my concern with the clinic, and I'm not entirely, and because of that reason, I was never really fully in support of it. I do believe that we need mental health for our students, especially for our students who went through this, but every student in Michigan should have the opportunity to go speak with somebody when they're at school if they feel like they need it. It shouldn't be a difficult thing. It shouldn't, you know, counselors are too focused right now. A school counselor is too focused on getting these kids assigned to the right classes. And as we know, there's a huge amount of student caseload for each counselor. So there should be mental health professionals in every district, to every district, that can come around and accept appointments and that. So that's my feelings on that.
Thanks, Lori. We're trying to wrap up by 2, so I just wanted to ask one more time if anyone else on the podcast or on the Zoom has a question, just hit your raise hand and we'll acknowledge you. Okay, we had a really excellent turnout today. Thank you for your time, all of you, for being here on behalf of Lori, Andrea, and all the other parents and students that are part of Change4Oxford. Thanks once again for being here, and we assume we'll be in touch as this process continues forward. Have a good day, everybody.